Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we talk all things Rockies baseball. And look, winter meetings might be done, but we're still in the heart of free agency. The Rockies were active. It was mainly building out their front office, which we'll get to. And we did see some players get signed already, but there's still plenty of free agents that the Rockies could target here before the season starts in a couple of months. And honestly, without these big names being signed, there's an opportunity the Rockies could take advantage of that. Value might drop. Guys become more affordable. And that could be something that the Rockies look into. And there's two different names that come to my mind. And there's two names that will have different value and different price points. I think one will make more sense than the other if the Rockies even have an opportunity to sign either of them. The first of which is Munetaka Murakami. Now, if you've heard this name, maybe you haven't. He's been playing in Japan, and a couple years ago, he actually set the record with 56 home runs in a season. The guy has raw power. He has a ton of potential. The problem is, if you search his name, Murakami struggles at the end of your Google search, you're going to find a bit of a glaring issue, a couple of them. First of all, he loves to strike out. Murakami, he's just a merchant at missing fastballs above 93 miles an hour. It's one of the big concerns about him and why we haven't seen him signed is high-speed pitches he really struggles with. On top of that, defensively, he's listed as a third baseman, but you might as well give me a glove and play in the infield. That's the kind of defensive struggles that he's had. He just probably wouldn't be a quality infielder for the Rockies, but what he would bring is something either at the first base or DH spot that the Rockies could really look at, and that's much needed power. And the reason why I brought up the possibility of numbers going down is early on, I mean, there were predictions that he could get a contract offer, something north of $100 million. That's just not something the Rockies would be willing to spend on a guy that is a bit of a chance and is a big risk. However, the longer we go on, there's a possibility and opportunity that maybe that asking price goes down. And if that becomes a reality, that's when I think the Rockies should really try to take advantage of something like that. Because why not, right? Why not try to find someone that could give your lineup a ton of power, especially if it's at a cheaper price. If it's something where he wants, 4 years, $120 million, might not make a lot of sense for Colorado. But if that asking price comes down, it's like 4 years, $80 million, $70 million, whatever that might be, then it becomes a little bit more reasonable, and it might be something that the Rockies take advantage on, right? As having just more power in the lineup, something that they just desperately need. The second name kind of falls into that similar situation where maybe that asking price goes down because the market's just not there. But I think he is going to have just more value than Murakami because he's proven it, and that's Bo Bichette. We've seen some teams interested, but just recently the Boston Red Sox have pullen out of trying to pursue him. And he's a name that's pretty interesting because obviously he's one of the better players in baseball. He'd be the best hitter in the Rockies lineup. You could probably insert him at second base because you don't want to move Tovar off of shortstop. But signing a player like Bo Bichette would be, you wouldn't be taking a chance on a player. This is a guy that you'd expect to be, obviously your best hitter in the lineup. Now, would it make sense for Bo Bichette to come to Colorado, go from, an inning away from winning the World Series to playing with a team that was worst in baseball? Maybe not. But if the price tag is right, you might see the Rockies do it. And that's why I bring it up, because I think it could be really easy to scoff at the Rockies pursuing Bo Bichette. The Rockies sometimes aren't afraid to open up the checkbook. And if it makes sense, right, you're probably not going to give him the greatest contract he's ever seen, but it might be something that if the price is right and the market's not there and you're still outpaying everyone, possibly, does it make sense for Colorado to do that, though? I don't know. I don't know if it does. But, I mean, if you want to sell tickets, Bo Bichette would sell a crap ton of tickets. And Bo Bichette would be a much-needed steady force for the Colorado Rockies. The infield would look a lot better. It was Bo Bichette and Tovar in there. And then you figure out, you sign someone at first base like Josh Bell that we've discussed, or Paul Goldschmidt. Someone to just hold things over for a year or two. He's kind of the golden egg, Bo Bichette, that is probably not attainable, but you do have to hopefully dream for something like that. And this front office has said that they're going to look at all options and all variations, and they're going to pursue what they think makes the most sense. So I don't think it's wild. Paul DePodesta has been aggressive before, both in baseball and in football, but he's also made a lot of smart decisions. So we'll see on someone like Bo Bichette. I think Murakami has more of an opportunity to become a Rocky. Again, he's probably going to, if he gets signed to Colorado, that would be something that we would see in like February or March because his market continues to drop. But we'll see, right? Actually, probably not March. I mean, that's got players have already reported and everything like that, but it is something to at least consider. But until then, let's talk about R.J. Pettit, who is a Colorado Rocky. And for Pettit, he was taken number 1 overall in the recent draft, and this is actually a nice move for Colorado. They get some much-needed bullpen depth, and for Pettit, he had a 2.27 ERA in AA, a 2.7 ERA in AAA, and had 33 strikeouts in 23 innings pitched. He is also just a behemoth. He's 6'8". Dick Monfort said he's a monster, and I actually really do like this pickup for Colorado. He has to be with the team for at least a year, and it's a hope to just really kind of amp up this bullpen. And so for Pettit, he's probably going to get an opportunity at some point in this upcoming season to show what he has. And I think to have some stability in that bullpen makes a big difference. So I'm excited to see what Pettit can bring. We'll kind of see. He'll probably start the season in AAA. But next, let's talk about Tommy Tanis, who's now the assistant GM. And this is a really exciting hiring because he's been with the New York Mets. He worked with Paul DePodesta from 2011-2015. He really helped lay the groundwork for that team that went on a World Series run in New York. He is going to be specialized in all things scouting, all things when it comes to the draft, player personnel. And this is another move by the Rockies front office to continue to lay that groundwork and continue to build up a staff that can hopefully make a big impact in the future. Analytics has not been a friend of the Colorado Rockies. Taking in players that play at Coors Field, that can play at Coors Field well, has not been a friend of the Colorado Rockies. They just haven't had the built-out staff to make the proper decisions, and now they're starting to do that. Paul DePodesta has done a really good job, and so while winter meetings and the beginning of free agency has been quiet on the player front, when it comes to just personnel in this Rockies organization, I think that they've done a really good job. They're building out that pitching staff. They're building out they're building out just this front office with now Josh Burns as the GM that was hired about a month ago now. So what the Rockies have been able to do in this offseason has actually been pretty impressive. Maybe not with the big players that they're signing, but instead just names that across the league. And that's my favorite part in all this. These aren't internal hires. They're going after guys that have experience and that have success. That's the most important thing. It's guys that have had success. It's not, a guy who's a junior in college and it's his first opportunity working in baseball. And I'm not saying that's what the Rockies have done in the past, but it can be really easy to do that. It can be easy to be cheap, to just hire someone, just to hire them, give them a chance. Instead, these are proven names that have had success. And now that the Rockies are hiring these guys, they have an opportunity to actually figure out what's next and what is the Wild NL West. Let's face it, this is the best division in baseball. And the Rockies have to look around and see what makes the most sense. You've got, of course, the LA Dodgers, who they will probably be good at baseball for the next 10 years. They aren't afraid to spend money. They've got talent across the board. Their one weakness was bullpen, and they just signed possibly the best reliever in baseball, right? They have maybe the greatest player of all time in Shohei Ohtani. They have hitting across the board. The Dodgers are just going to be a problem. But you can't look at it and say, well, they're good. We can't, let's not even try. And then that's just one team. The San Diego Padres have been competitive every single year. They were just a series away from making the World Series just a couple years ago. Of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks just a couple years ago were in the World Series. Really, the only team that has struggled are the Giants, and they won 107 games in 2021. The Rockies have finished last 4 seasons, and it can be easy to look across the landscape and say, man, how are we going to beat these guys? But that's why you bring in this front office that we've seen, and that's why you start bringing in talent. You can't just rely on farm system players to turn things around, especially with the anti-tanking rules that baseball has implemented now that we talked about in our show yesterday. You just can't do that anymore. So that is something to consider. The Rockies need to look across the landscape, what works in the NL West, what doesn't, and how do we build a team that can compete with the rest of these guys. Not just compete with the Padres and the Diamondbacks and the Giants, but you have to have lofty goals and say, how do we compete with the LA Dodgers? It doesn't necessarily mean, hey, we have to win the division, but it does mean, hey, how do we get into the playoffs and how can we beat these guys in a 5-7 game series? Those are the questions you have to start asking. Those are the questions that our front office has probably been asking themselves since they have been brought on to work here in Colorado. So those are the different things in the NL West. It's exciting, though, because it really does feel like the first time since the Rockies made a playoff push when they beat Chicago that this team has some pieces in play. And it's all at the higher up level, which is honestly more exciting than if you had a couple of good players. So those are all questions that you have to ask. Those are all things that we're hoping to see in 2026 is just how can we improve? I think a lofty goal for next season is how can we try to not finish last in the NL West? Which sounds crazy, but I think you need to start having those sort of expectations of we don't want to be the worst team in the division or the worst team in baseball. But until then, we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, season's starting here in a couple of months. But until then, I will be gone for the next couple of days, but then I will be back bringing you Rockies content on the daily. Until then, I wish you all a very, very great day, and I'll see you next time.